enough of that nonsense. I'm heading down towards the Bonfire area because I've decided this year, for various reasons, to do things a little differently than I have done them previously, mostly because of some slight changes to Will's working pattern. So what I have done previously is have my bonfires and then scatter the ashes around the lawns to fertilise them. And then secondarily to that, I've gone round the property raking up all the leaves and twigs that are on the perimeter of the house and taken those in our trailer one at a time, so over several trips to the tip to dispose of, because that material tends to have rocks in it, and what I don't want to do is spread ashes over the lawn with rocks in it and then subsequently go over them with the mower and create a spark and possibly start a fire. But what I've decided to do this year is, because that may prove difficult, is to clear this stuff now, which is just the debris from the trees and shrubs that I've burnt, and then work my way around the perimeter of the house as I normally would, finishing up at the areas that are closest to the house and burn them, and then deposit that ash in the woods. So I'm hoping that possibly that'll even help to speed things up. But first of all, what I need to do is gather this and spread it on the lawns. Because as the years go by, there's getting fewer and fewer bits and pieces that I need to burn. This is a relatively modest amount of ash. So what I thought I'd do is start spreading it outside the formal garden fence, but on the lawns that are adjacent to it, and then work my way out from there if I have enough. But prior to that, what I want to do is just have a quick look at these lawns and pull up any weeds which I don't want, and then I'll set about spreading the ash. I have just received in the post my ballot paper for the local council elections. I thought it might be interesting just to briefly show you this, because in Australia, you may or may not know that voting is compulsory, although I think if you choose not to vote, you get a fine, and the fine is hardly onerous. So in theory, it's compulsory, even for this local council election. And I haven't voted in this before, but it's a postal vote, so that's quite handy. So what you need to do is read over all of the statements provided by the 23 candidates, and then you have this piece of paper, which is your ballot, and you have to put the numbers 1 to 23 in every single box in the number of your preference. So it's hardly the easiest task. It does actually take quite a lot of effort on the voters' part. It's all well and good making voting compulsory, although I don't know what that actually achieves. Really, I don't know if that makes the populace any more politically engaged or inclined to do the right thing in terms of their due diligence. But certainly, this is well over the top, and all of the elections I've been involved in have been like this, whether it's these council elections, state or federal. It's just totally over the top. There's about 29,000 candidates, and you have to put marks against like all of them or most of them or whatever. Is actually quite a difficult and I think laborious process. And since these are council elections, it's hardly high stakes, and I'm wondering how many of these people are going to have used the word passionate, local, advocating. It's going to be much of a muchness, I would think, and You know, you can only really go by what they're telling you, and they could tell you anything. So suffice it to say, this is going to be pretty tedious, I reckon, and at the end of the day, hardly that important anyway, because councils deal with things like schools and swimming pools and roads and libraries. You know, important enough stuff, but hardly, you know, international diplomacy. Anyway, let's get on and see what this motley crew of people have to say for themselves. Oh yes, she's passionate. Oh, she's passionate too. Oh, and she's local. Anyway, thought you might find that slightly interesting. I don't know how well you'll be able to hear me. I haven't bought my microphone today. But I have reached the end of the line. I wanted to show you something. These are dog footprints in the sand. These are totally different animal footprints. You can see it's more like a hoof type thing. I don't know what that is. Could be a kangaroo or a wallaby. Don't quote me on that. I use my Crocodile Dundee reindeer skills to track whatever it or they are, and they seem to have headed up into this coastal scrubland. I've had to think about it, and I think it's most likely those tracks are made by deer. Something about how they were spaced apart rather than close together, like side by side, like you might expect for a wallaby, and also that they were quite deep, and I could imagine that the sort of long spread of a kangaroo or wallaby's foot would make quite a shallow impression, unless it was running. But these are quite deep, and deer by comparison of course with quite small feet, small surface area. So anyway, I think it might have been deer. Hello! As you will have seen, we're at the beach again. But I'm not going to dwell too much on that this time. I'm actually heading home, but I thought that I might show you a little bit of the routes, a little bit of the scenery and landscape as I go about my business. I'm stopping off at a local town to run some chores and collect our fortnightly grocery shop and all that kind of sort of day-to-day admin of life. I'm back home again and I'm doing a little bit of work on a sort of side project that I have had in mind since we've been going to the beach more regularly. It's an excellent beach for beach combing, and I have found on my travels quite a lot of interesting shells and stones, and I'd wanted to do something to preserve them, to make them sort of enhance their attractiveness. All these stones look amazing when they're on the beach and they're wet, but as soon as they dry out, they literally almost lose their luster. So I thought I'd have a go at polishing the rocks, not like sort of to the extent that you might get a polished crystal. They're not crystals, although I think one of them is quartz. But that aside, so they're never going to have that sort of polished crystal quality, which is fine. I'm not into that anyway. I just find that the sort of qualities of these stones intrinsically quite interesting, and I sort of want to enhance that and draw it out. So what I'm doing now is watching episodes of Inspector George Gently and using various grades of sandpaper. I'm giving them their initial buff, and then I'll probably leave them a day or two to dry, and then I will oil them. You're supposed to use mineral oil, and I decided that I'd go down the baby oil route because you get a bit more bang for your buck. So the process basically is sandpaper them, different grades of sandpaper. So I got this wet dry sandpaper, which will do 240 up to 600. So I'm doing 240, then I'll do 600. Then I'll buff them up with toothpaste. So I got this inexpensive toothpaste for that. And then I'll leave them to dry, and then I will oil them up. I've already made a start on my shells. Let's have a look. Obviously I'm not sandpapering these, but what I did do was go over them with toothpaste, and now I'm just leaving them to dry, and then I will try to oil these as well. All sorts of different shells. I just think they're really interesting. This one is my personal favourite. It's makes me think of some sort of Art Deco building in New York. I think that's just the effects of the sunlight on it. It's just given it this extraordinary pattern. Other ones that I think are quite interesting, because this one's got like little barnacle stuff on it. This little one, because it's quite intact. I like these ones where they're sort of still joined together. This one this beautiful inside. Isn't that stunning? And then I really like this one. Doesn't that just look like it's flecked with gold or something? It's like a work of art. I like the colours on this one. And then these ones, I think they don't really need any explanation. They're just magnificent. But I like this one because it shows what's sort of happening on the inside. Really, really interesting, like pasta. So this is my shell collection. I may do a bit of culling, but I don't know. I like them all. And then I will turn my attention. This isn't the entirety of my rock collection. I might show you the rocks when they're done, because you might be a bit like, oh well, they're not that interesting, are they? But I just think the different patterns and the different colours, like this one's going to be much more red than it's looking now, and this one is slightly quartzy, but I've got another one which I think is just pure quartz, which is interesting. I like the different patterns on them, the different colours, and I do find rocks and geology and that kind of thing actually quite interesting. I haven't started this one yet, but so I will enjoy looking at them in closer detail when they're all nice and polished up.